I want to thank all of you for coming to hear my story. I've done a lot of research on the whole internment camp, especially Topaz. That's where we were relocated. And I have done talks. Every year I used to do talks to the high school junior class. I just found that it was interesting that a lot of people did not know about the internment. I originally came from Pescadero. Our family had a large ranch, actually farm, which my dad had. He farmed, and you could see the building that we used to have prior to our internment. Father lost all of that. It was hundreds of acres and everything, the house, everything, because he was not there to make payment to the bank for the properties. So a lot of Japanese people lost all of their property, all of their goods, basically because they had no way of paying in the bank loans. When my mom was in Pescadero, she got a message, and she didn't understand because she didn't speak English. Found my father, and at that point was told that we need to be at the Williamson store with one suitcase. And we had a family of 5 people, 3 kids and 2 adults. For those of you that don't know Pescadero prior to the war was a lot of Japanese people. It had a Japanese school, it had a Japanese temple, the Buddhist temple, and it also had a dojo. Our number was 21855. So every family had a number that they had to put on themselves and on all their belongings. So from the Williamson store, we were taken to Tanforan Racetrack from April to September 1942. And I think the reason why the government chose the racetrack was because of the convenience of the enclosure of the racetracks. It is totally enclosed, and, you could house people there, even if it was in the horse stalls. But there was also the ability to have people sit in the grandstands to eat and do those kind of things. However, their lack of understanding, the lack of restroom facilities, and also the inability to clean the horse stalls when people were coming to live there. We were very fortunate because we had a family of 3 kids. We got one of the newer stalls that did not have horse manure in it and was whitewashed. So all the other horse stalls that didn't house families were whitewashed with horse manure and everything there. As people were being held there for that long of a time, people were starting to get sick, getting diarrhea because of the health conditions. When we were there, the families were asked 3 questions. Depending on how you answered those 3 questions, determined where you were going to be placed, either in a high security camp or just a regular camp. And the people that said that they were still loyal to Japan went to the high security camps. From Tanforan Racetrack, we went to Topaz, Utah by train. The windows were all blackened, so you didn't know where in the heck you were going. But we were there from September 29th to October 11th, 1945. When we got there, the barrack, there was no furnishings, there was no walls. You had to go get straws to make your bed. There was a pot-belly stove. And of course, in this shorter time, they were not able to have sewer. So they had ditches, which were like in front of barracks and stuff, and they had planks. So when you went across, you had to be careful so you didn't fall into the sewer things. There was 12 barracks in a block, and we were in block 25, and I think it was 33, I can't remember, but I think we got moved because my brother was born there, which gave us 6 in our family. We had 5. But in every block there was 12 buildings, a laundry room, they called latrines, and showers, and a dining hall. But in the restrooms there was no privacy, there were no stalls. It was kind of like just open. It was kind of like really hard. You had no identity, what building you were in, where you were at, and all that kind of stuff. They had kids help the older people, especially to find the residents. And in the camp, It was not a really nice, pleasant kind of environment. It was a high wall security with bob fence, and there was towers where guards stood with guns. And they did shoot a little girl in Topaz. When that happened, what the government, the block government people and stuff, decided to start nursery schools because the little kids had nowhere to go and nothing to do. And so I was one of the ones that did go to the nursery school. My mother hand sewed those clothes, and she made her own pattern because they're going to have taking pictures of us. And so since we didn't have any clothes, she made them. So it's really great. I don't know if you know about Japanese culture. We are very proud, respectful people. And we take death as being respectful. And so during that time, there was a lot of Japanese elder people that did commit suicide. And it was not frowned upon. It was an honor because they were not going to be a burden on anybody. And they respectfully felt that they needed to go to peace. I think one of the hardest things was the weather that we had to endure. It was 106 in the summer and 30 degrees below, and the wind was horrific. So you would take one step forward and blow back two. And then there were schools for people. They did have a high school, elementary school, and all that. And we did not have great food. We had liver and mutton. As you know, Japanese like rice and vegetables. And so they did have some of the gardens and things, but I don't think we had as much rice. To this day, I hate liver. I love liver, but I hate lamb because it was not lamb, it was mutton. It was old stuff that stunk. One of the things that they did in the camp was they had block government. And so every block had their own government, and they governed themselves, which I think was really good because this way there they could handle whatever problems and things that they were having in the 12 barracks. Everybody had a job. My father was a cook. I'll tell you, he was a great cook when he came out. And he was probably a great baker. I have never seen anybody take a roll of dough and for pies and roll it out one time, and it was perfect. And so my brother was born in the camp, and there was a tragedy. In the camp, there was no stoves or anything, and so everything was like with an electric cord or on a potbelly stove or whatever. And my little brother, when he was an infant, pulled the hot water off the stove, and he was scalded. And because he was a boy, and this is what my mother said, they did do all the surgery and graft on his face, but not on his neck or on his arms. So to this date, he still has that scar. One of the things that I remember the most about the camp is the baseball games on Sunday. And maybe that's why I have that love for softball and baseball, to this date. And I know that everybody really suffered, but I don't think anybody suffered as much as the Japanese nationality when it came to the war and the loss of their property, their money, and all that. And a lot of people have never been able to recoup that. My dad never was able to recoup all that he had. And I people have asked me, do you think this would ever happen again? And I say yes. And let me tell you why. I don't think it would be as drastic as it was to the Japanese family. However, we have this, and I hate to say it, Clay, we have media and social media that puts fear into people. And fear does lots of things. We've seen it happen here in Half Moon Bay. I've seen it happen on city council. And fear, no matter how much you try to correct or get information out, never happens unless the fear is gone. And until we can get rid of that emotion, this can happen again. When you think about it, you can sit and kind of think all the things that have happened, but I don't hold any grudges, basically because my mom and dad didn't. If they probably did, I probably would have, because you know how I am.